you for joining us. We'll be live again at 5:30. Until then, here's a look back at last night's newscast. 19 new cases of COVID-19 are being reported in our region since yesterday, and 16 more people have recovered, so that brings our current number of active cases to 168. Breaking that down, you can see that 48 of those cases are in Burlington, 61 in Oakville, 35 in Milton, and 24 in Halton Hills. None of those cases are severe enough to warrant being treated in hospital, but there has been another outbreak declared, this time at Amica Bronte Harbor, where one staff member has tested positive. Dr. Hamida Magani, our medical officer of health here in Halton, has updated the protocols for what happens when you've been told you confirmed positive or have a possible case of COVID-19. You must isolate immediately so that no one else is exposed. You need to stay in self-isolation from 10 days since your symptoms started, as long as on the 10th day you no longer have fever and your symptoms have been improving. If your illness was severe enough to warrant an ICU, then you need to isolate for 20 days. If after the 10 or 20-day period has passed, you still have fever or symptoms, you need to call Halton Region Public Health for advice by dialing 311. Having had to take up the teaching role this past spring, many parents have a new appreciation for teachers. In honor of yesterday's World Teacher Day, Nikki Wesley spoke with a local Oakville teacher to see how the school year is going so far.
River Oaks Public School teacher Sally Fares has been teaching for 30 years. I asked her to look back to the beginning of this school year.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I've had my challenges for sure, and I have had a few tears along the way, feeling like, oh, I really don't like this, and it's really hard. And I think I just had to get over myself and sort of use a growth mindset, like we teach the kids here at school, and just try to make some lemonade out of lemons. You know what? This is just a huge thing just to be in the building and just to be getting the kids here. And so I had to just kind of relax a little bit and understand in myself that it's not going to be like every other year. And I found it really hard in the beginning to be so separated from the kids, behind a mask, behind a shield. Having a really hard time getting them to hear me, and just I felt like I was totally disconnected. It was really hard. And so I actually have a little voice amplifier that's made it much easier.
Inspired by precautions she saw at her gym, she created boxes around each desk with colored tape to help students understand where their bubble ends. Sanitizing is now a major part of her day.
Really, truly, our custodial staff has done an amazing job and has got some really strict protocols in place. So I'm not necessarily cleaning the kids' desks or things like that. If I do have to hand them out anything, I'm sanitizing my hands first, and then I hand things out and I sanitize again. If someone's pencil sharpener isn't working, I get my sanitizer wipes, I wipe my hand, I take the pencil from them with the sanitizer wipe. And so we have amphibian skin really often through the day with the thick coating of sanitizer that we have on.
To help avoid sharing, all students have their own implements kept in little bins at their desk. To help further reduce contact, this year organization is incredibly important in the classroom.
We joke around when, some kids have more things on the floor than others. And I always say, oh, there's a tornado that's touched down over there, so you better go be a storm chaser and clean it up. And so the kids have really had to do a lot of organizing.
Fares says she's often called mom by accident at school, and she certainly feels like the mom, reminding kids to keep their distance from each other or keeping their masks on. Physical distancing, however, can pose a real challenge when students are emotionally upset.
I'm sort of forthright with the kids, and I'll say, oh, you're getting really close to me, and we'll do virtual hugs, and I'll say, here, I got one for you. Oh yeah, do you feel that? And I'll say, oh yeah, that was a really hard one, thank you. So that's kind of how we adapt that way.
Looking down the road, how would she feel if schools closed again and she had to teach virtually?
This spring was like climbing Mount Everest as far as the learning curve for me, teaching virtually. So I sort of feel like now I've got some of those tools under my belt. So yeah, if I had to do it, absolutely.
Her grade 3 teaching partner at River Oaks is currently teaching in a virtual classroom, so if schools close,
I'll get more caught up with her and some of the new strategies that she's and little tools she's discovered, because there's so many more new things that we can do with our Google Classrooms.
Reporting for Halton News, I'm Nikki Wesley.
And with students being back in school, there has been an increased demand for COVID-19 testing, and many have reported delays in securing an appointment for testing and then lengthy waiting periods for results as well. Oakville MP Anita Anand, our federal procurement minister, made an announcement today that she hopes will help this current situation.
Last week are just some examples of the federal government's efforts to supplement the current standardized testing regime. In terms of our announcement today, I, with my colleagues, are pleased to announce that we are adding to the lineup of rapid tests that we have procured. The Government of Canada has signed a new agreement with Abbott Diagnostics to purchase a total of up to 20.5 million antigen rapid COVID tests, which can be analyzed on-site without additional equipment, with results in about 20 minutes. This is in addition to up to 7.9 million ID Now rapid tests that Abbott will provide. In addition, the federal government has procured enough swabs, reagent, and other materials to conduct 200,000 tests per day in Canada for at least the remainder of the year. However, as we have seen throughout this country, challenges persist in scaling up laboratory capacity to process the increasing number of samples in the required time. Beyond providing rapid turnaround for results and much needed capacity in northern and remote parts of our country, these point-of-care tests are crucial to expanding testing capacity more generally, because these samples can be analyzed on-site and do not require transportation to a lab to produce results. To be clear, the strategy in terms of our procurements is not to replace the standardized testing model, but to enhance the capacity of provinces and territories to keep up with the increasing demands for tests. Hence, our procurement strategy is one of diversification across various tests.
Those of you in Burlington who were opposed to Village Square being home to a 17-story building will be pleased to hear that the new official plan for Burlington only includes 4 stories for that area. Burlington's Mayor Marianne Mead Ward joins us now for more on the amendments made.
We had an epic meeting. It was 11 hours and an epic outcome that I think the community really should be very proud of. They had a hand in shaping it and making the changes to it. So there were a number of amendments that were brought forward by myself and Councillor Lisa Kearns, the Ward 2 councillor, to reduce the height in certain areas, particularly Village Square and the downtown east side, where there's a lot of heritage buildings. We heard loud and clear through the election that residents wanted changes in that area from what was in the adopted official plan. And just a reminder, there were plans in the previous plan to put a 17-story building in the middle of Village Square. That is gone. It is now a low-rise retail and residential district, 4 stories. And we are also committed to doing further study of the downtown east side, particularly around Elizabeth, Pearl, in that area, to look at the heritage resources and determine whether they should be formally designated under the Ontario Heritage Act. So a number of other changes as well. You can see it on my website, mariannemeadward.ca. With the final sign off is actually tomorrow. So that was committee, and the final wording that will then be sent to Halton Region is at tomorrow's council meeting. That's open to the public. People can delegate, they can write in, they can certainly watch from home.
And there's also an update about the rights of protesters in front of the Fearman's facility on Harvester Road. Can you speak to that?
Sure. There have been legal and peaceful protests outside the Safina Fearman's pork processing plant for years. And that's legitimate. That's perfectly acceptable. We want to encourage people to use their rights to speak and to share their views. But we are equally committed to ensuring that everybody, protesters, drivers, people who use the streets in and around that area, are also safe. And we've seen some troubling behavior that, of course, led to the horrific tragedy of Regan Russell losing her life while protesting a couple of months back. So the province has brought in legislation that would forbid interfering with a truck that is transporting livestock. They are out for consultation on that, but they did bring one section forward early, and that was the section that they enacted immediately. There's another section that Burlington Council wants them also to enact immediately, because what we saw happening is that that was interpreted that you couldn't interfere with the truck while it was moving. So what we've seen the protesters do is go into the medians in the middle of the road and still interact with the animals, touch the truck. And of course, that's extremely dangerous. They're in the blind spot of the driver. If they slip off that median, then they're right into live lanes of traffic. And of course, interacting with the animals in the truck. So the section that we have asked as a council unanimously for the province to enact immediately is that you can't interfere with any livestock in a truck either. So we believe that that will keep everybody safe. That's the goal here, while still allowing full rights for protesters to safely on the sidewalk express their views as they have a right to do.
And last but not least, Thanksgiving is quickly approaching. What is your message to residents about family gatherings?
So the province, of course, is encouraging people to stick to their immediate household, family that they live with for Thanksgiving. If you live alone, then interacting with one family or finding a way to celebrate safely. The provincial, it's a guideline, so it's not a rule, but it is being encouraged. The rules across Ontario are no more than 10 people inside anywhere. And a reminder that if you do have 10 people in your household, you still have to physically distant 6 feet apart from anybody who you don't live with. So I do know that there are folks that are planning Thanksgiving, and if you follow those protocols, you'll be okay. But the advice has been, as much as you can, please stick to your immediate family and celebrate virtually. And I know Burlington can do it. We have weathered this storm really well and found virtual ways and other ways to celebrate at a distance from people to keep everyone safe.
Airbnbs in Milton may soon have to follow a new set of rules. The town's looking to create a bylaw outlining how they're allowed to operate. Melissa Candelaria explains.
Neighborhoods across Milton have these. Homes for rent on Airbnb, and although many of them promote quiet, family-like settings, some have caused problems for their neighbors. So much so that mayor and council have directed staff to draft a new bylaw with restrictions for Airbnb and other online renting agencies. Councillor John Challoner says it's been an issue for years.
A number of neighborhoods in rural and urban Milton have been victimized by so-called party houses over the last couple of years. And it's become a real problem over this past summer. Essentially, people are cooped up, they want to get out, and they've taken to renting rural properties and urban properties where large groups of people gather over a weekend and have get-togethers with loud music and other things, which in a COVID perspective is very dangerous. And so we've seen a number of examples over the summer of hundreds of people gathering together, not wearing masks, not social distancing, creating a really unfortunate situation for their neighbors.
Now, details on exactly what those restrictions are have not been decided yet, but Challoner says the restrictions are likely to cover a few areas.
It's going to relate to health issues, to safety issues, to the number of people who can be in a given space, the type of activity that is permitted to take place, hours of operation, etc. Airbnb is well aware of this, and they've been attempting lately to deal with it by restricting the number of people who can be in a given home or on a given property. but it hasn't been very effective, as we've seen, quite frankly, right across southern Ontario this past summer.
Not only will town staff be looking into restrictions, but also some investigative work into overall Airbnb operations in Milton.
As part of the work that is undertaken by staff, we're going to do a study on that to understand, what is the state of rental accommodation in Milton, and is it being impaired by the Airbnb model?
Findings of that study and a draft bylaw is expected to be presented to Mayor and Council in the new year. Now, what is also interesting to note, though, is that they will be looking into mandatory licensing of Airbnb establishments with the town. Reporting for Halton News, I'm Melissa Candelaria.
In honor of Fire Prevention Week, Oakville Fire Chief Paul Boissonneau shares some tips for cooking safely.
The main focus for kitchen fire safety is that essentially it is the #1 location where home fires and/or home fire injuries take place, and unattended cooking is the #1 cause of home fires. So the focus on serving up fire safety in the kitchen, there's a lot of great new pointers, very simple in nature but very effective to ensure that everyone can serve up a delicious meal but be very safe in doing so. Making sure that you never leave cooking unattended, that it's always being monitored, and whether that's broiling or bringing something to a simmer, making sure that you're there while that's taking place. If you are using a pot, make sure that you have a lid that's handy, making sure that you've got a child-free zone, kid-safe zone of at least 3 feet around the oven area to make sure that there's no little hands that can certainly touch anything that's hot and or create any challenges during the cooking process. We want everyone to be able to cook and create great meals. Thanksgiving is actually a very unique time, that is actually a pretty targeted date as far as many home fires and or cooking fires related to the Thanksgiving date. So the fact that this happens at Fire Prevention Week is very timely for sure.
Thanks for being with us. We do need to take a short break. We'll be back with how Oakville Transit is going electric. Stay with us. Welcome back to Halton News. Oakville Transit is going electric. Through a partnership with Siemens Canada, who happen to have their head office right here in Oakville, the town is moving to an electric fleet. The next episode of Oakville Matters goes into detail about how the fleet may work. Here's a short clip of that with Oakville Transit Director Bailey Cole.
For Oakville Transit, we're actually working with Oakville Hydro, have in the past. Siemens is actually part of the Q-Trick-driven pan-Canadian electric bus trial. Oakville Transit was actually one of the founding members of Q-Trick. And we were part of that trial when it was Pan-Ontario, and then there were some funding issues. But you managed through it all and got out to, I believe, TransLink in BC. You're part of that. And you mentioned the pantograph and then the depot charging, but Siemens has a solution for both, I believe. And you're right, our greatest reliance will be on the depot charging. That's, the bus comes in, charges overnight, goes back out in the morning. And then throughout the system, there would be what they refer to as opportunity charging, which is the use of the pantograph where it pulls up and over maybe a 4 or 5 minute period gets a quick charge and off it goes again. Some of the limitations there are, where do you put the pantograph? Who owns the property? And we have a terminal, which is the endpoint for a couple of routes, midpoint for several. But then you run into, you put them on Metrolink's property, that type of thing. So we're going to be, I think, heavily reliant on the depot solution. And then look for every opportunity to use opportunity charging.
So Barry, when will we be able to invite Faisal and anyone else for our first electric bus ride in Oakville?
I am really hoping it would be early to mid, probably around Q2 of 2022. So we will get, assuming 2021 budget approval. We already have the ISIP funding in place for our first conventional buses. They would be purchased early in 2021. We would anticipate taking delivery around Q2 of 2022. And hopefully over the course of the time it takes them to build the buses and deliver them, we have the infrastructure in place to start out with.
It was another beautiful fall day out there today and will continue to be into the evening. Taking a look at our 5-day forecast now, you can see that tomorrow we are anticipating rain showers and cloudy skies, but the sunshine will be back by Thursday and stay for the rest of our 5-day outlook. Up to 20 degrees as our high on Friday, and then into the Thanksgiving long weekend. Mix of sun and cloud expected both Saturday and Sunday. Saturday's high 18, Sunday only reaching 13. Tune in tomorrow to see what Monday has in store. It is a stat holiday. And now a look to how some of Halton's top companies performed on the markets today. We'll be right back with the Burlington Food Bank as they gear up for this year's Thanksgiving. Stay with us. The Burlington Food Bank is gearing up for Thanksgiving and also dealing with less fresh fruits from their garden. Executive Director Robin Bailey has more.
This is Robin Bailey, the Executive Director of the Burlington Food Bank. And with the weather kind of turning and getting a little bit cooler, sadly we're at the end of kind of the growing season and our garden has done really well. Still a little bit coming in, but not that much. And we just wanted to thank all of our garden volunteers, especially Lisa, who did just an amazing job of growing, but also organizing our volunteers and making sure that our garden did really, really well. We also want to thank the group at Burlington Together, the Grow a Row program, just incredible. Thank you so much for your continued donations. And also Burlington Green with their Give to Grow program. Just again, we feel so blessed to have community partners like you in our community, looking out for our clients and being able to serve healthy, nutritious food. The really great news is people who've continued to give to us financially allow us to continue to purchase good, healthy, nutritious produce, apples, oranges, potatoes, carrots, broccoli, all kinds of stuff, making sure that people are going to continue to be able to eat healthy, those who are in need of the services that we provide. So again, thank you so much to those three organizations for all that they've done, and also to those who continue to give to us that we're able to continue purchasing great, nutritious, healthy food.
We'll be back tomorrow night, live at 5:30. For Halton News, I'm Jessica Keating.